Have you ever had that moment where your intuition used to feel sharp and lately you just feel that it's not really working? All there is just radio silence, as though your intuition is out for a long lunch break and you're not even sure when it's going to return or if it's going to return back. So, how exactly can you connect with your intuitive messages when you feel that your intuition is not really working? In this video, I'm going to show you that the cause is not because you are out of alignment or not spiritual enough. You'll also learn how the universe is going to give you signs in a different manner when you feel your intuition is not working. And that's what we are going to dive into this video. Hello everybody, I am Vaishali Nikhade. I am an engineer turned psychic with over 9,000 readings. And I show you how you can leverage the power of the spirit, meaning intuition, and the power of the stars in order to be able to create momentum in your life. So here's what you're going to learn in this video. Your intuition channels messages differently when you are emotionally overloaded. If you ignore the pre-warning signs, it will alert you before disaster strikes, and old fear patterns and logic hijack your inner knowing. And I'm also going to give you an aid to be able to connect with your intuition if you feel that there's a lot going on and you're missing out on the messages that your intuition is trying to give you, or you simply feel that you're not connected with your intuition. So stick around until the end and I'll show you how you can get that aid. So let's get started. The first point is your intuition channels messages differently when you are emotionally overloaded. So that's just a lot of words. I'm just going to give you a real life example of what it means and you'll be able to connect the dots. So there was this lady, let's call her Anna, and she used to trade in the stock market. So this is a real life example with the names changed and the circumstances changed slightly so that the identity of the person can be protected. But let's get back to Anna. And she was using some technical analysis, and then she was also using a little bit of her intuition in order to be able to put her trades. Most of her trades were kind of based on whatever analysis it was that she was doing. And what she found, and this was, she was day trading, so you'd have the results within less than a day, within a few hours or a few minutes, depending on how long she stayed in the trade. So what she found is whenever she would put on a trade, her body would flinch and she would kind of get a signal or a pulse through her body that the trade is not going to do well. And she would start making a note of it, because I asked her to start making notes when such a thing would happen. And she would start making notes that, oh, okay, I kind of felt that pulse run through my leg. And then she would lose the trade, in the sense that she would have a loss on that trade. She wouldn't make any money on it. And if the trade was going to go okay, then there would be nothing. Her body would not communicate anything. So essentially what was happening is that she was emotionally overloaded. So there is a lot of stress associated with trading, because trading involves money, either loss or gain. And whenever there is a loss or gain of money involved, there is always stress that comes with it, especially when you can see it with your own eyes and you're executing the trade yourself. It's different when you're giving advice to someone and they lose money, but in this case it was her own money she was losing. So what was happening is that her intuition was connecting with her through a different manner, because she wasn't really open to listening or receiving the messages in let's say the conventional way intuition would connect with her on a normal basis. So stress led intuition to connect with her differently, and she would get these pulses through her body. And as soon as she got that pulse, she knew she was going to lose that trade. But the key point is that it would only happen after she pushed the button to get inside the trade. So it's not like before she's pushing the button, she gets the pulse. She would have to push the button to get the pulse, and only then she would know. So the smartest thing would be to cut her losses short as soon as she gets in. And we kind of worked on a solution for that. But that is how intuition communicates when you are emotionally overloaded or under stress, or there is some sort of a financial profit or gain, profit or loss involved in it. So one way that she was able to kind of help herself was using the Cosmic Chronicle. And the Cosmic Chronicle is something I'm going to introduce to you once we get to the third point. And you will also be able to get access to the Cosmic Chronicle and kind of connect with your intuition if you feel that it is not working. So we move on to the second point, which is if you ignore the pre-warning signs, intuition will alert you before disaster strikes. So your intuition is always trying to communicate with you. Whether you are receiving the messages or not is kind of up to you. Maybe you're too busy, so you're not in a space where you can pick up the message or listen to the message and so on. So let's call this second person Bianca, which is a separate example. And Bianca essentially was, she had to make a wire, and she was talking to a friend about it, and she was just really very busy throughout the whole day before she actually had to make this particular wire, which is like a wire transfer, which is transferring money from one bank account to another. So Bianca is then talking to her friend, and let's call her friend John Doe. So Bianca is talking to John Doe, and then she's telling him that, okay, she is on her way to the bank to make the wire. And then as soon as Bianca starts from home and drives to the bank, she finds that she's getting like a knot in her stomach, and she's feeling as though something is not right, that she needs to pull back. But she had already spoken to John, and she knew that John was going to call her after she got back home. So she was like, should I make this wire? Should I not make this wire? Should I make this wire? Should I not make this wire? But she kind of knew she had to make it. Even though she was thinking that in her head, she knew the action that she was going to take. So go ahead and put in the comment below if you've ever had a situation where logic was telling you one thing and intuition was telling you one thing, and you chose to go with logic and it backfired on you. So this is her home, and she's driving, and this is the bank. So let's call this bank, and this is her home, and she's driving. And then all the way when she's driving from her home to the bank, she's kind of getting these knots in her stomach that, hey, listen, don't do it. So that is how the intuition is communicating with her. The logic is saying that, hey, listen, just go and do the job and do the wire and go back home and call John Doe. Her intuition, on the other hand, is telling her that there is a problem, don't do it. There's a problem, don't do it. Sometimes it's like a huge knot in her stomach. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, and so on. So essentially, she has two contradicting messages. This message from her intuition, which is telling her that there is danger, and this message from her logic, which is telling her that, hey, listen, you got to do the job. So she is kind of conflicted, but kind of not, because she's going to do the job. So she's using her logic and she's going to do the job. So she goes and then she actually makes the wire. So within a few days, she realizes, she's talking to John Doe, and within a few days, she realizes that something is not right on the other end, meaning to the person to whom the wire was made, which for lack of a better way of saying it, it wasn't a genuine transaction. So luckily, she goes to the bank and she is able to recall the wire and essentially kind of get her money back. So you can see how logic was kind of telling her that, hey, listen, go do the job. And intuition was kind of coming in, spiking, saying, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. No, don't do it. But she was kind of just so used to following logic. She wouldn't really have an explanation to John Doe that why she didn't do it, apart from that her intuition told her. So this is how your intuition alerts you if you ignore pre-warning signs, which is just before the disaster is going to strike. It is sending you impulses and telling you that, hey, listen, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. So think of it like you're kind of sick and you're about to throw up. You don't, most of the times, you don't just go and just throw up. Initially, you're kind of not feeling well, then you start feeling weak, then you start feeling nauseous, and then you go and throw up. So essentially, intuition works the same way. It is kind of starting the signal low and upping the level of the signal or amplifying it until it becomes really loud that it's hard for you to ignore it. It cannot force you to take any particular action. All it can do is deliver the message. As far as Bianca was concerned, intuition delivered the message. She acted differently, that's a different story. But at the end, because of the way her intuition was alerting her, she was a little more cautious about the transaction and she was able to get her money back. So we move on to the next point, which is old fear patterns and logic hijack your inner knowing. So let's call this person Diane. And Diane actually came to me. She was a client. And she wanted to kind of know, she had two choices. She could either go and room up with person one, or she could room up with person two. So Diane was going to a conference and she just wanted to know who would be the best roommate, person one or person two. Person one was someone she knew and person two was a stranger. So she wasn't quite sure as to what to do. So she came to me and she asked me what to do. So I told her that even though person one was familiar to her, rather, it would not be a good situation. And person two, even though was a stranger, there would be something good that comes out of it, out of being in the same room together. Maybe they develop a friendship or whatever it was. So Diane goes to the conference and she doesn't tell me what decision she made. My job was to just give her the information. Just like intuition just gives you the information, it cannot force you to act. I did not force Diane to act, and she came back from the conference, and then so I asked her, so what happened? How was it? How did it go? And essentially, she came and told me that, hey, listen, I ended up rooming with person one because, I was already familiar with person one and I thought it would be nice to go with person one. So I know that's not what you said, but that's what I did. And it turned out to be a real disaster because what person one pretended to be was very different than what person one was when they ended up rooming together for the conference. The conference was only 2-3 days. So they were just essentially kind of being in the same room for a few days, that too only the time when they were out of the conference. At one point in time, she just got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and got out of that room and went to a coffee shop to just be able to calm herself. The situation was so bad between the two of them. So you can see that intuition kind of did its job. It gave her the message as to whom she should room with, but she had some preconceived notions that she already knew person one, so she decided to go with person one. And because of that, the whole situation ended up being a disaster. So this, you could call this logic, because essentially she went with logical thinking that, hey, listen, I already know person one, why should I just bother and just room with someone I don't even know? So that was logic. And then there was an old fear pattern that she had, that she didn't really want to go and kind of room up with strangers. So combined, they hijacked her intuition, and I was the external person who gave her the message as to what to do. So if you combine everything, then everything was kind of telling her to not go with person one. She ended up going with person one, and essentially the whole situation turned out to be a disaster. So if you are in these kind of situations where your logic is telling you one thing, just like we had in the case of Bianca, where she had to make the wire logically but not intuitively. In case of Diane, where she could have roomed with person two, but she chose going with person one. And in case of Anna, where she could have avoided losing money with the stock trade, but she would only know if she pressed the on button or enter button. How exactly would you connect with your intuition? This is the reason I have developed what is known as the Cosmic Chronicle. And what the Cosmic Chronicle does is it essentially helps you or gives you a high level picture of what to expect during the week. And by looking out for that high level picture, you are flexing your intuitive muscle and the ability to be able to connect with your intuition. And that particular thing can turn out to be the event of the week for your week, or you can just use that as an exercise to be able to flex your muscles. So the link to sign up for the Cosmic Chronicle is below, and if you would like to know what led me to developing the Cosmic Chronicle, it was a $900 candle. And that is the subject of my next video, how a $900 candle led me to developing the Cosmic Chronicle. So I'm going to put the link, you should see it on your screen, and it will be below. And I'll see you in the next video.